This podcast is brought to you on Roku and Fire TV by PodNation Podcast TV. Find us on X, Facebook, Instagram, or wherever podcasts are broadcast. Download our app and never miss a show with video on demand as well as exclusive content found only on PodNation TV. Live from Oslo, Norway, it's the Monster Island Film Vault, episode 99, Godzilla vs. Megalon, featuring Kaiju Kim and Damon Noyes. Hello, Kaiju Lovers, and welcome to the Monster Island Film Vault, a podcast seeking entertainment and enlightenment through tokusatsu. I am your host, the still traveling film curator from Monster Island, Nate Marchand. But today, depending on how you feel about him, it's either fortunate or unfortunate because, well, Jimmy's not here. Because, you know, he's getting married or something. You know, so he went right back to the island and left me here to do the show alone for a hot second. But thankfully, he sent a worthy, not successor, but a worthy substitute, we'll say. Yep, there he is. None other than Jet himself. Okay, I'm still working on my Jet speak here, and I only caught about half of that. Hey, don't get angry with me, okay? I've been really busy for a while. I haven't had as much time to study Jimmy's manual that translates everything you say. Okay, I think that was get on with it. So let's do that. Because we have not one, but two guests with us here today. Well, one in person, one through the magic of the internet is coming to us live from New Jersey, making her grand return to MIFV. It's the queen of the fabulous empire, Kaiju Kim.
Hi. Full disclosure, nobody that was born and raised in New Jersey says it like Joyzy, so please never, ever do that again. Hello.
I only do it for you, Kim, because I love you.
Of course you do. Gee, thanks. All righty then. So yes, hi there, hello. I am coming to you from New Jersey because I know I had to stay home with my son, baby Godzilla. You know, his dad's out of town, so I got to take care of him. You know, change his diapers, feed him cheeseburgers, all that fun stuff.
Oh, well, yes, but yeah, and you need to save all of your pennies because I'm letting everybody know, both you and our next guest, I'll let you know here in a hot second, but our next guest is our favorite crab-loving puppet master and executive producer, Damon Noyes.
Konnichiwa, or should I say, no, I can't say, I don't know Norwegian. There we go.
Wrong country. You gotta go.
I know.
Still Scandinavia, but wrong country.
Well, I mean, I have passed through just about every Scandinavian country to get here, so there is that.
I'm a little surprised that you made it here.
I won't go into the whole story, but I did get diverted. I'm trying to do a Scandi tour.
A Scandi tour. Oh.
Yeah, I'm doing all the Scandinavian countries, all four of them. And unfortunately, I got dropped off in Mother Russia by mistake. And so I had to hike across the border surreptitiously into Finland. And the Russians were not happy. I mean, they are at war.
Yes.
So,
yes.
You know, and
I occasionally hear about it from Rushbot. Yeah.
A little bit. It's a minor scuffle going on somewhere in Eastern Europe. But in my escape, I was aided by apparently the great-granddaughter of Finland's greatest World War II hero, the White Death. And apparently the sniperism in the family runs true because I soon found myself quite alone in the Finnish wilderness. And some passing Scandinavian bicyclers, of course, rescued me and shuttled me here. So, yay.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. But like well, like I was saying, it's exciting to have you here. I know that, you'll be in about a month or so, I think you mentioned something in a past email or whatever, because you're the executive producer on the show now because of your generous patronage. Something about a special event in Denmark?
Yes, it's called Repticon. It is a convention of fellow Reptilicus lovers, and sad to say there are not many of us. However, there's enough to fill
I don't know.
a minor
you might get a
music
spike.
hall.
You might get a spike with the new Vinegar Syndrome release.
That's what I'm kind of hoping. It was kind of a surprise, and was very happy to see that. And it did arrive before I left for Northern Europe. So
that's good to hear. That's good to hear. But you
have a player.
Oh yeah. But but Damon, you're going to be very well traveled, and Kim, like I was saying, you need to start saving your pennies. Because I'm going to let you all know here, because I said. Yes, Jimmy's getting married very soon, and all past MIFV guests are on the invitation list. So.
Oh, okay. Now, I don't know if you know this, but are children around? Because I can't leave the baby home alone.
Oh, children are allowed. Yeah.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
So I can bring my son. Okay, good.
Yeah, good. That's fine. That's fine. Just make sure he doesn't eat the wedding cake or something.
No problem.
It was my understanding that non-mutated Kamacuras were the babysitters on the island.
Oh, that's new. The board didn't send me that memo.
Yeah, that came through Virus.
Yeah, I was going to say, unfortunately, my most frequent contact with them is Virus. And his emails are full of typos because he's using tentacles. And usually, it like every other sentence is a threat of decapitation. I just...
You get what you give, really.
Basically. I don't know if he's been promoted or demoted because, like I said, he's the one I talk to the most. It's kind of weird. But you know what else is kind of weird? Today's subject. We're doing some more Godzilla Redux, and oh boyser. Oh my. Is it famous, infamous, notorious? Whatever adjective you want to use for this.
It is a cinematic masterpiece, and I will hear no words against it.
Okay.
There we go. Podcast over.
In my previous podcast life, I said, because this is part of Godzilla Redux, I said this is arguably, and I would still stand by this assertion, this is arguably the worst Godzilla movie in the series, other than Godzilla 98. I'll put that caveat there. But it barely qualifies as a Godzilla movie. But I love every second of this thing. It is by no means the least entertaining. It's some call it creatively bankrupt. I think maybe, but it's far from boring.
It is saved by chest and facial hair.
According to
Which is uniquely 70s.
According to Stuart Galbraith, the sideburns were pasted on.
Were they really?
I thought I was hearing no words against this movie.
Oh well.
No, everything is natural. Everything occurs as you see it on screen, in picture.
Oh, okay.
I'm just saying. I do think that chest hair can stop bullets. I mean, look at it.
Yes.
I think much like Virus's tentacles, it is alive and can be used to decapitate people.
Do either of you know that he actually has a name? I know we're kind of starting the podcast a little early, but I did not know for years that he actually had a name.
Antonio!
Emperor Antonio.
They were catering to the whacked out Italian market.
Which is why it has a whacked out Italian title.
See the level of detail of this movie. They were thinking ahead, man.
Okay, we'll get into it. Again, I think Jet is telling us to get on with it.
Yeah, Jet. I understand.
I was gonna say I don't know how good either of your Jet speak is. Like I said, I'm only catching about half of it.
I don't speak Jet.
It's a little harder without the semaphore that he does and the hand gestures, but I'm getting the gist just because I've known of Jet since 1975. So
76.
It's AIP says 75.
Well, AIP is wrong.
So I have to retract my state. I have failed you as an executive producer.
You're fired. Get out.
Literally, we're gonna stuff you into Uber Mogura's missile tube.
Fine, I'll take my money and go.
All right. Well, let's actually get into this because we're gonna have fun. That's really what this episode is going to be. We'll have a couple of big brain topics that we'll get out of the way after, 15, 20 minutes. And then we're just going to cut loose because Godzilla versus Megalon. Come on. This is great audio. I just like to say, your little dance moves.
I'm trying to leave a lot of empty space for Kim because the last time she was on with us, we kind of steamrolled over her, and I don't want that to happen again. I want to give her the opportunity.
It's fine. I don't speak much. It's I'm used to it by now.
Yeah, but this is Godzilla versus Megalon,
and I'm sure you have thoughts.
Yeah, I do. I do have thoughts.
Also, I'm pretty sure Jet's gonna be watching out for you, and he'll probably pipe in and yell at Damon and I for talking, and I don't want to get punched by Jet anytime soon. Okay, all right, yeah. Thanks. You're catching on there, Robot Man. Oh, a little sensitive about that name. Okay, I'm sorry. Gee.
Yeah, he's not a man.
Well, tell that to Cinema Shares, but we'll get into that. All right, here we go. All right, Damon, as the epic Jet cover music plays, what happens in this movie?
It's 1973. Nuclear tests are running rampant, causing destruction on the undersea kingdom of Seatopia. Emperor Antonio of the fabulous chest hair decides that he has had enough, and so he calls upon their god monster, a giant, kaiju-sized cicada cricket with drill hands, the most fearsome beast ever, to go to the surface world and exact revenge. To aid their god in this, Seatopian secret agents seek out Science Dad Goro and Action Dad Hiroshi to steal their cybernetic organism, Jet Jaguar, and reprogram him. Indeed, they reprogram him to go and lead Megalon to the cities to destroy them. But Jet is taken back by Science Dad and sought Godzilla's help. Megalon can't do this on his own. He knows Godzilla's too strong. So Emperor Antonio calls upon... Oh, what is that again? What is that? Space Hunter M? Galaxy?
Nebula M Space Hunter.
Yes. Calls upon the Space Hunter Nebulans to send their cybernetic space hyper chicken, Gigan, to attempt to help Megalon destroy Godzilla and the surface world.
Of course!
And what results is a tag team slobberknocker that will rule the centuries. Will Godzilla win? Will Jet Jaguar actually help except to just stand there and look happy? Can a cockroach cicada and a cybernetic hyper chicken from space actually do anything without actual hands? Stay tuned, gentle listeners, and you too shall find out. And that's how it's done.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you so much for that.
I need that transcribed and put on the back of the solo Criterion release right now.
Please do.
You have the recording now transcribed to your heart's content, because that is better than anything that I ever saw on any box art.
That was wonderfully done. Thank you.
It's the voice.
The voice is everything.
Can you tell that he's an actor by night?
In a world where a postman can host a show and act at night. You get me, the dancing monkey.
This is setting the tone for the entire episode.
I'm here for it.
Because that is the level of cinema that we are dealing with today. I will say, we're just real quick. I do before I get into the big brain stuff, I would like to hear, at least really quick, because I know that it's a big reason why both of you wanted to be on the episode, or I wanted to have you on the episode. But let's talk about discovering this movie. I will say that this was actually technically the third Godzilla movie ever that I saw. I saw Terror first, only about half of it though, and then I found a VHS 2-pack, and it was the first one I ever bought. It was the Good Times Home Video edition. Oh, yeah. And I bought that, and it came with King of the Monsters and Megalon. You want to talk about tonal whiplash? And given that I was familiar with Power Rangers at the time and was completely unaware of the copious amounts of things like stock footage in this movie, I took to it pretty well, as you would expect. What about the rest of you?
So my first time viewing this movie was kind of weird, So it wasn't like an official VHS release, but it was like recorded off TV somehow, some way. Nice. I specifically remember it was recorded right after King Kong 33, which is also how I first saw that film.
Yeah.
And so after that film would play, like as soon as like the end title screen came on, but then it would cut to Godzilla versus Megalon, and it would pick up from like right at the very beginning. It said this was what happened, and then I was like, hey, what's going on?
Once again, the tone shift.
Yeah. It just smash cuts to Ted Thomas telling you about nuclear tests and the illusions.
Basically, yeah. So that's how I first saw this movie. The crappy audio and
it's funny.
Visuals.
It's funny that it was right after watching Kong 33 for you, because notoriously in West Germany, when this movie was released there, Jet Jaguar was renamed King Kong.
That's right, he was.
Which perpetuated this bizarre rumor that the German dub and like the German promotional material was trying to say he was literally a monkey in a robot suit.
Oh my gosh.
Hence my monkey comment.
It's like Mechanicong in reverse. Again, getting sensitive over there. Jeez.
Oh my goodness.
Someone sassy.
Jeez. Okay. No robot man and no monkey in a robot suit. Got it. Jeez. Although I would pay to see that version of Jet show up. That would be so funny to me. I don't know how it's a gorilla, though. He does not look like he's built like a gorilla.
A lemur at best.
Yeah, maybe. Although I did watch an interview with the Jet suit actor who said that's like, yeah, my legs are short, and they put he said I'm guessing it's probably like an inch and a half boosters into his shoes to make him look taller.
The infamous lifts.
The lifts. All right.
They have helped many a short actor.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise.
That and camera tricks. But then he makes up for it by jumping up and down on a sofa on live TV. So
it gives him an extra foot of height.
Yeah.
You can look people in the eye.
Mm-hmm.
I'm shorter than Tom Cruise, so I
and you're adorable.
Oh, thank you.
All right, Damon.
She's chibi-sized.
Yeah,
I'm fun-sized.
Yeah, fun-sized. See, I was waiting for that. But Damon, Kim and I, recorded off TV, found the VHS. Ooh, boring. Well, you've got how I saw this movie is a little more interesting.
Peasants. All right. Picture it. Again, I have to revise. 1976. I was about 6 or 7 at the time, living in Torrance, California, with my parents and the younger sister. Most of the details are rather fuzzy as around the edges, since I can't even recall who took me to the movie. I think it was probably mom. Dad was usually either sleeping or working. But I do remember it was at a Cineplex at Old Town Mall in Torrance, California. The mall itself had only been recently built in 1972. So this was like brand spanking new. This is the first time they actually did a Cineplex, if I remember correctly. I don't remember a lot about this mall, but it was, the first mall I'd ever seen because everything else was like mom and pop stores. Mm-hmm. So I remember that they had a full-size vintage carousel working in it. They had a creepy dark ride that you'd normally see at carnivals. In it. It was like on this corner thing, and I always wanted to do it, but mom would always say no because it's too scary. And I agree. I was kind of a scaredy kid.
You're scary adult.
No, I was a fearful child. How about that? Is that better?
Okay. And
there was a comic book store right near where the carousel was. Regardless, I would get these like packs of like 20 comics for like $10, and which was a deal apparently. Anyway, it was being at the theater to watch that Godzilla film that just had me floored. I mean, before I'd had to watch on what by today's standards is a small television screen on Saturday afternoons, right? And it can be interrupted by commercials, my kid sister, mom doing dishes or vacuuming. These are all things that impact your viewing pleasure, right? So being in an actual theater where you had to be quiet and watch the movie was a treat. And it was a brand new Godzilla movie, one I'd never seen before, with a brand new monster. I mean, 100 kinds of bliss, guys. Just for a 7-year-old, I was gone. It was fantastic. I don't remember it. It was the dub. It was the AIP one. We all know how bad that is.
No, it wasn't AIP
or whatever. It was the international dub.
Yeah, from Hong Kong.
Yeah. So it wasn't great, but it's the one that was showing on television. It was one that eventually showed on television. So you see it all. So my recollections are mostly of the television version because through repeated viewing. So I don't remember the actual experience itself, except afterwards. That it was a once in a lifetime event, and I had it. None of my friends were Godzilla kids. None of them. I almost never told anybody about it due to not wanting to get put in a trash can. This was the 70s. It was a lawless time. So Saturdays went back to normal, but Godzilla versus Megalon went into the regular rotation on the television, competing with all the other kaiju movies, Rodan, Mothra. Even I think I even saw Varan once. It didn't track very well, so it only showed the once. It's not a good movie. It isn't even a good Godzilla movie. It's just not good. But it holds a special place in my heart because it was the first theatrical Godzilla movie that I saw, and the only theatrical Godzilla movie I saw until 10 years later with Godzilla 1985.
So you missed
which
out.
Is also
I was going to say you missed out as CinemaShares released both Gigan and Mechagodzilla. Not long.
I believe I remember them being advertised. Yeah, I remember them being advertised, but I think the word terror kept my mom from wanting me to.
No, that was the Mechagodzilla was 74.
Oh, Mechagodzilla. Okay. Oh, right. Then I don't know why. I don't know why I didn't get. I know that I never saw another one in the theater until 85. I wish the watching of the movie was as indelibly imprinted upon my brain as the experience around it. But I know I got to see it in the theaters. I remember distinctly that stupid American poster with them standing on the World Trade Center.
That was a riff on King Kong 76.
I know that because I saw that in the theaters as well.
I was going to say, the problem is, wow, that young?
Yeah, that hurt.
I'm more like, I'm not sure that's child appropriate, even by 70s standards. But
parents were much more permissible about what their children could see.
Oh well,
in the 70s, believe me. It's a lot different.
We'll take your word for it. But but that poster is a lie. As epic as it is a lie.
It's not even epic. It's terrible. It doesn't. Even I looked at that thing coming out there going, no. No.
Yeah. But I'll like I said, I'll get into that a little bit here. Production history, Big Brain thinking. I can't even talk. I will take no smiley metal lip from you. All right.
He doesn't even have lips.
That's part of the joke, and because if that mouth starts moving, I think I'm gonna get a little scared. Yeah, that is the great visuals for a podcast. Right
I know, right? You should be recording this in a different way so that we can throw it up on YouTube.
Yeah, maybe. You'll either have to increase your patronage or talk the board into allotting me more money.
I can talk to Virus. See what's what.
You might want to. I would think you're a little attached to your head. Is all I'm saying.
I subscribe by the maxim that the Queen of France did, which is in a crisis, it is of utmost importance not to lose one's head.
Yes.
So I wear a metal collar when I talk to Virus.
Yeah, smart move. Okay. Anyway, so in my previous Godzilla Redux episode with Danny DeManna on Godzilla versus Gigan, we talked one of my favorite idioms that he brought up in our first ever G-Fest panel, which was a little primer on Shinichi Sekizawa and Takashi Kimura, the Toho's two premier screenwriters. We spent a lot of time talking about Gigan because for all intents and purposes they collaborated on that, even though Kimura gets zero credit in that movie. And he said that Gigan was a product of circumstance and Godzilla vs. Megalon is a victim of circumstance.
I do not doubt it.
Which is very true because the entire movie from inception to release was 6 months. Now, by Toho standards... No, here's the thing. By Toho standards, that's not even the fastest turnaround. It's not. Because both Matango and Atragon were actually put together, especially Atragon, were put together very quickly. We're talking like 3 months, all right? Here was the problem. For what I've been able to piece together, Toho didn't give the filmmakers the time that they needed to actually film the movie. Because, and credit to John LeMay for this, he theorizes that they were hoping to do another project that ended up going unmade called Godzilla vs. Red Moon. And there's not a whole lot of detail available on what exactly that was, but he thinks that they were going to do that. It fell through, and they're like, okay, go make something else. And make it for the Champion Film Festival, which will be in the middle of March, because the Japanese school year, I found out, starts on April 1st. That's why the Champion Film Festival, which is meant for kids when they're on break from school, that's why it's in March, so they can have one last hurrah before they go back to school.
That's a hell of a April Fools.
Yeah, there you go. So, and the Champion Film Festival is something that, that's something we all have heard about as Godzilla fans. It's where they would either, they would put out a kaiju movie or tokusatsu movie or edit some TV shows together. It was kind of a multi-studio thing because Tsuburaya Productions was involved with it. Toho was involved with it. So it wasn't just a Toho thing. So they wanted to get this slapped together and for the Champion Film Festival because that's what they did for Gigan the year before. So, that's what they wanted to do. Well, they had 3 weeks to film this movie. Now, from what I've been able to piece together, there were screenplays or treatments. No one's entirely sure, and different sources I looked at said screenplay or story treatment, but there were apparently 3 in September of 1972, and they were submitted by Shinichi Sekizawa. He gets story credit on this, but they didn't finalize that and give him enough time to actually write the script. The script was actually written by Jun Fukuda, the director, and it shows. Nothing against him as a writer. It was just clearly done hastily.
Didn't they finish the script while they were filming? When it was kind of
I don't know. It feels like it though, but but from what I could tell, you had these early drafts, if you want to call them that, had titles like Godzilla vs. Megalon, Operation to Destroy the Undersea Kingdom. At least that's one way to translate it. I saw it translated a different way, and that was submitted in it's in 1972. It says, and then the second one had an even longer title, and I saw this one translated a different way too, but it was Insect Monster Megalon versus Godzilla, Operation to Destroy the Undersea Kingdom. Interesting how Godzilla gets second billing in this. First time since Mothra versus Godzilla. Okay. And let me see. Where was the third one? I don't see anything about the third one right now, but those were two of them. And then, it was released March 17th, 1973 for the Champion Film Festival. The U.S. release, according to one of the sources I looked at, I think it was Wikizilla, said this was April 28th, 1976. Does that gel with you, Damon?
Again, we're talking foggy memories here. They got that hazy shade of winter around the edges. It sounds right.
It played a lot in 76 and 77, from what I could gather.
Again, I was so young, and the next year was let's see, the year previous, 75 was Jaws, which I did see in the theater, and the next year was Star Wars. So a lot of stuff got shunted off my brain. Excuse me. Once the Star Wars stuff started coming out, I was like, there was nothing else in the world, which is kind of a sad thing for a Godzilla fan to say, but it's true. It was Star Wars in 77.
I was going to say that was a moment when cinema changed, was 1977 with Star Wars. But going back to this, so it was done hastily. All the suits are brand new in this, which I wasn't aware of. I thought they had recycled the Gigan suit with maybe some modification. Nope, that is a brand new Gigan suit. And so it's believed that constructing these 4 brand new suits ate up the budget. The $20 they were given, to make this thing. It just ate up all that budget. The Godzilla suit, from what I saw, was supposedly made in a week.
It remains one of my favorites just because it has the giant friendly eyes and it has the kind of droopy.
I love the design of Godzilla. He's so cute and cuddly.
This is definitely a semi-chibi Godzilla, and he's just adorable.
I've heard it described as the Cookie Monster Godzilla.
Yes, thank you. The Muppet Monster. Yeah,
the Muppet Monster. So that's why you're on this episode. It's close enough to a puppet, right?
Fans, there are no puppets in this show. And I am severely disappointed.
Oh, even the little Jet Jaguar prop doesn't count?
Those are stock things that they hang on a wire. Those aren't puppets. Come on.
Well, and here's the thing. Here's the thing that makes this even more complicated. And, there's a lot of rumors, weirdly enough, attached to this. As fast as this movie got made, there's a lot of misnomers and rumors attached to its making. Yeah. I don't get into the creation of Jet Jaguar here in a moment, because that's a whole to-do unto itself. But it was actually believed for a while that this was just supposed to be a Jet Jaguar movie, and at the last second, they threw Godzilla into it. Kind of like Ebero Horror of the Deep, the other Godzilla movie that was on MST3K, interestingly. That is, and we could talk about that, the MST3K edition of this movie. Oh, that got them in so much trouble. I'll talk about that briefly at some point. But no, that is, near as anyone can tell, that is not exactly the case. However, John LeMay is of the opinion that perhaps this was meant to introduce Jet so that he could get a spin-off TV show. But this became the first Godzilla movie to sell less than 1 million tickets. So it was considered I don't know if a flop is the right word, but definitely a disappointment. It underperformed, to say the least. Right. So they decided not to go ahead with the TV show, because there's some documentation that says that Jet was a quote-unquote TV character. Probably because, again, this is the 70s. This is the second kaiju boom, or more aptly, the Henshin boom. Things like Kamen Rider and Ultraman and Kakaider and Johnny Sacco and things like that. That's what the kids like. That's what's popular, because they're like, why would I go pay to go see a movie when I can watch the same thing on TV for free?
Well, the misinformation at this time period, you also have to remember there was no internet. There was no quick mail services. Getting movies over from Japan was incredibly hard, and TV series even worse. We did have a Japanese television channel on UHF in Los Angeles at the time. And so I did get to see a lot of early anime dubbed, of course, like Speed Racer, Kimba, Gigantor. Mm-hmm. But the other big thing is from that same time period, is misrepresenting Ishiro Honda's name as Inoshira.
Oh, there's a lot of people whose names were misrepresented.
People to this day, of all people, Quentin Tarantino, when I was listening to a recent podcast of his, He says Inoshiro Honda. It's like, dude, you're a movie buff. How the do you not know this? That you are wrong.
How could you be so wrong?
Oh, everything. I mean, he knows his stuff, except that. And it was a glaring error. And it made me angry for the whole rest of his discussion about kaiju. You don't. I can't take you seriously. You don't know
you said his name wrong. 1 star.
You have lost credibility in my eyes.
How dare you accuse me of losing credibility on this show at least once an episode? Jeez.
He's not wrong.
I'm amazed I caught all of that. I think he's using simpler diction now. You know, he's lowering himself to our standards now, I guess. You know.
Well, our standards are already very low.
I guess.
I mean, we like this movie, so that's pretty obvious.
I mean, this movie establishes that Jet is powered by plot convenience and can, you could have an AI discussion from this movie because Jet just literally wills himself into sentience.
Basically.
I don't think it's AI. I think he's powered by cat.
Cat.
Jet has cat energy. Look at that smile. It's very Cheshire grin. He does what he wants when he wants on his schedule.
I mean, his name is Jet Jaguar.
That's a cat. Jet Jaguar is a cat. Hashtag Jet is a cat.
The next
it's not even a hashtag. I don't think Jet Jaguar is a robot at all. I think there's a cat piloting him.
That makes perfect sense. You see, I never thought that through. See, it's a good thing we had you on the show.
Yes. And now
no, there it is. There's a cat puppeting the robots.
Oh,
there it is. That's the one.
I'm back, baby.
That is actually not the most insane fan theory I've ever heard.
Better than a monkey.
It's on the top 10, but it's still not the most insane. Also, I've now decided that the next time I get a pet cat, I'm naming it Jet Jaguar. Or I just remembered. Poor little Gary. I ended up saddled with a cat a couple of years ago. I'm not sure he ever named the poor thing. Maybe he should name it Jet. I'm just saying.
JJ,
there you go. I like it. I like it. But, let's talk about the creation of Jet Jaguar because, good Lord, that is a whole to-do. It is a whole to-do. How much do you know about the creation of Jet Jaguar, Kim?
I know there was a contest held, and his original name was Red Alone. According to the
Red Aron or Red Aaron. Red Aron. It's supposed to be Red Arrow. Apparently.
That makes more sense.
Yeah.
Which is also the name of a DC comic character, but we'll ignore that.
Yeah.
Sensitive about that one too. Jeez.
Oh my God.
Does that mean Jet has a heroin problem? That's a little testy for this show. I mean, we are G-rated.
Maybe he's a little cranky.
I mean, he's smiling all the time. Maybe it's a rictus grin.
Wow.
I'm coming hard for you, Jet.
It sounds like it.
I accept the challenge.
Wow. Okay.
Oh no.
Okay, you two. Can you at least do it off of Uber Mogra so I don't have to testify?
You have a good legal department, though, right?
I know a really good lawyer. Yes,
but he's not here right now.
No, he's not. The problem is I don't know which one of you he would represent.
Depends on who pays him the most.
I suppose. Actually, I should mention before this, and according to one of the sources that I looked at, it said that all this production hell stuff that's going on for this movie, it gave the crew working on it, quote unquote, faded enthusiasm while they were making it, which is a little sad. Even Jun Fukuda famously hated all of his movies and had to be told that they were good and find out that people like them. Particularly the Americans. And he's like, "What? You like this crap?" And it's like, "Yes, sir.
That movie?
We love you. We like your stuff." So apparently, later on in his life, he died in 2001, but apparently late in his life, he was happier about his work.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. I mean, come on. How, according to Jimmy, The War in Space is a masterpiece. So
Only because it's about him.
Yeah, it's always about him, right? Right? It's always about him. We love Jimmy. Anyway, we're moving on. Okay. But yeah,
Jet Jaguar contest.
Yeah, they were losing interest and didn't like that Godzilla was becoming childish. Because they took their work seriously. And so there you go. So Red Alone, however you want to say it. That it was a contest. It basically just ended up being honestly kind of a gross publicity stunt because I feel sorry for the poor kid that they had make this thing. So there was a television show on at the time. This was a contest that was put on by Toho, Subaraya Productions, and the Seiyu department store.
Department store.
Yeah, it was a department store. They put this whole contest on. So, like I said, there was a television show, the Chibico Special, which was a Sunday night variety show for kids, and it was for kids who like monsters, and they would do periodic contests where they would have kids design monsters. So this was kind of a semi-common thing that they would do. This one was just elevated because these movie studios came in and they said, hey, the one who wins is going to have his monster put in the movie. So all the kids got really excited, especially a kid named Masaki Sano. He was the one who won with Red Arrow, Red Aron, Red Alone, whichever name you prefer. And, I sent you guys a picture of what it looked like. It was very different. About the only thing that carried over was the color scheme. Because
chest and torso elements.
A little bit, yeah. but that might have been a bit of a redesign that was done later, as I'll explain here. But it has a more insectoid-looking head. It had wings. It was inspired by Ultraman and Mazinger Z. Okay, and if you know those, you can see that even in that original design. Well, it was redesigned and renamed. Oh, by the way, the name of the contest was the Kitty Kaiju Campus. I like that. Oh. It's some nice alliteration there. I wouldn't put it past the board to bring that back in some form or another.
The board would have to be careful with that many K's in the row.
No. It's KKC.
Oh.
So we're safe.
They wouldn't go for the... Okay.
We're safe. We're safe. Unlike Zootopia, but we'll get it.
Oh, dear.
So anyway, this all aired in March 1972, which is around the time the Godzilla vs. Gigan was released. Well, poor little Sano, when they revealed the winning design live, he had to be consoled. He didn't like what happened with his design. Because they changed it, and they changed the name. Apparently this poor child had to be consoled live on television. Because they changed it.
The poor kid.
That's rough.
And no one's entirely sure why they changed the name. The prevailing theory was Toho wanted to avoid a lawsuit with Seiyu and a potential lawsuit from a grown-up Sano. Because I can imagine. You imagine we'll say little Sano was like 8 years old. He turns 18, and the first thing he does the day after his birthday is sue Toho over this. Where's my royalties?
I'll take the case.
What? That was, Damon, that was an impeccable impersonation of my friend Raymond. That was amazing.
I spent a lot of nights at the Marcolite Lounge.
Oh, I'm sure you. No, wait. Raymond hangs out there off hours? He has off hours?
Well, I mean, he gets billable hours wherever he is as long as he's working.
Oh, okay. I guess he's doing something with Mr. Gomer. But what kind of legal trouble is Mr. Gomer in?
Copyright infringement.
Oh, that makes sense. I'll ask him about it because the Marcolite Lounge is hosting the reception for for the wedding. So
of course it is.
Of course it is. I'll ask him about it when I get back. Because I'll have to be leaving to go back there a little bit soon too. But anyway, so all of that went down. So they think that because they just completely changed it, the design and the name and everything, it was probably nothing more than just a publicity stunt. But here's what makes it even crazier. The guy who was credited as the designer for both, not the kid, but the guy who was was credited as the designer for both Megalon and Jet Jaguar, has disavowed ever doing it. So no one knows for sure who actually designed him. But Akihiko Iguchi, and I want to say that it has to be faulty memory, because according to we'll talk a little bit about that, about the infamous Media Blasters DVD, because I've heard the commentary. But according to according to the commentary by Rifle and Galbraith, it would make sense to me because the guy designed monsters for Subaraya Productions. Well, he designed characters for Subaraya Productions, not just monsters. So I'm like, that's why it looks like Ultraman.
See, the way you had worded it at the beginning, I thought you said he designed the kid.
No, excuse me.
And that would be a great job.
Yeah.
Because it looks very human.
Yes, very human. He's also credited, and now I'm wondering, did he actually do this too? Is he disavowed these as well? I don't know anymore. But he's also, I guess we'll find out when I get to these movies. For upcoming episodes, he's also the designer of King Caesar and Showa Mechagodzilla. Okay then. So you had that little bit of a debacle that went on, and then, like I said, it got released. It underperformed. It played, in case you were wondering what it played along with at the Champion Film Festival, it played along with a movie called Prominent Youth, which is about a boys' soccer team, and it was an early animated film from Hayao Miyazaki and Isao Takahata. Oh, no, not that one. This one was the one that was the early film from them. It was called Panda, Go Panda, The Rainy Day Circus and Jungle Kurobe.
Okay.
So there you go. Boys soccer, pandas, and Godzilla versus
cicadas
Megalon.
and hyperspace chickens. Got it.
This all gels, right? This all makes sense. Doesn't it?
Into kind of like a very strange jambalaya, but yeah.
That is a word I never thought would actually be said on this show. Wow.
That's a real bad sandwich there.
Yeah,
So.
there you go.
Jambalaya.
Yeah, that's a good word.
Yeah. But the Stuart Galbraith actually blames the failure of this movie and the waning interest in tokusatsu at this point on Mickey Mouse and Doraemon. This was a theory he espoused in the commentary, because he says following this year, the Champion Film Festival, instead of having kaiju stuff in those slots, they just started replacing them with Disney movies, imported Disney movies, or movies based on the manga character Doraemon.
I'm more likely to say it's not either of those two cartoon characters' fault. I think it's more of a money issue.
Oh, yeah.
That it was cheaper to do the cartoons than it was to do the live action.
Well, and here was the other thing, is that when, in the 60s, at the height of this, Toho was releasing movies on double bills in theaters that they owned. They're keeping most of that money.
Right.
Okay? By the 70s, after the big crash, they're doing the Champion Film Festival. They're sharing it with other studios, so they're making the movies cheaper so they can theoretically still make a decent amount of money back, because they have to share it with everybody. So they're trying to have a lower investment in this. It makes
Can't get much lower.
Yeah, it makes some sort of business sense, I'll say that. So there's a multitude of factors contributing to this. So now we got to talk about, the stuff behind the U.S. release, because good Lord. Good Lord. And folks. You were part of it, sir. But this, Cinema Shares, it's run by, it's Marin. I need to remember his full name. He has an alliterative name, which is kind of fun.
Not Mark Marin.
No, Mel Marin.
Mel Marin. Oh.
Mel Marin. He ran Cinema Shares. He previously ran Marin Films, which had released, they released a couple of other Godzilla movies.
Sounds familiar, yeah.
Yeah, War of the Gargantuas and Monster Zero in 1970.
Yes, that does hit something in my remember brain.
Yeah. Now, Cinema Shares normally did exploitation films, and they definitely, from what I could tell, promoted this rather aggressively like it was an exploitation film. They went ham with this movie. And Mr. Marin said he loved Godzilla. He thought Godzilla would be great for kids because it's a hero who's not Superman. It's a hero who's a monster. That's cool. So he loves Godzilla. He made that abundantly clear in his little interview. He was like, I love this guy. I love Godzilla. So that's why he was excited to get this movie. And then, like I said, he went crazy. You know, they got the dub for it. And, they released it. So, it said summer of 1976, but like one source I said, looked at said April. And, it sounded like he said, back then it wouldn't just play everywhere all at once. He said it was on about 2,100 screens in America. But I guess he says back then movies would travel along, around, and they would go to play in different places and then move around. I'm like, okay, gotcha. And, he would send. This is crazy to me because this was at the tail. I think this is kind of the tail end of when stuff like this was done. But the studios, for a while, would actually send materials to theaters saying, like, here's a promotional suggestion, an idea for this movie that we're sending you. And they would do stuff like that. With Godzilla vs. Megalon, it would included stuff like having a car caravan that would go through towns, and they would have monster cutouts. Telling everybody to come see the movie. It was wild.
I wish I could say I saw any of that.
Yeah.
All I remember is walking by the Cineplex, seeing it, and saying, "We go there now."
We go there
I
now.
want to go to there.
Yeah.
She said, "Haven't you already seen a Godzilla movie? This is a new one.
This is a new one, Mom.
New one."
Yeah.
Oh, I don't think they're still making those.
And here's the other part. He says that when they were done with this, they said they made about $5 million, which 1970s, that was a lot of money.
That's a lot.
For what they're doing, and it made more money than the other two movies that he released. The other two Godzilla movies he released after this, Gigan, which is when it was retitled Godzilla Monster Island, and Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, which was Godzilla versus the Bionic Monster for a hot second, and then became Godzilla versus the Cosmic Monster. And this is arguably the worst of the three, and it made the most money.
But it was the first one to come out, right?
Yes.
That's why.
And it had been the first theatrical Godzilla movie, and I think they said
Since 56?
no, I think I saw 3 or 4 years. So, there was that, it's like, oh, we haven't seen one of these at a theater in a while, which I do want to say, I was not there in 76, obviously. I have seen Megalon in a theater thanks to G-Fest. I'm sorry, Kim, you could not make that because airports are evil.
I'm still salty about that.
And that was a different experience because it was the subbed version.
Nice.
It was not the dubbed version.
I did eventually get to see it on a big screen at a museum, the Museum of Moving Image in Queens, New York. So I did get to
Yay!
get to see it on the big screen. So yay!
High five.
I still wish I could have seen it with you guys at the Pickwicks. That was so
it was
unfair.
glorious. I will say that. But hey, high five.
Yay.
Video call high five there. So it's not the same, but I have actually had the privilege of seeing it in a movie theater. The other thing that's kind of funny is Mr. Marin actually had a kind of low-key kiddie matinee premiere for critics to screen it, and the critics actually said nice things about it.
How much were they paid?
Said things, nice things.
It's kind of funny. I found some of the responses, which I'll go over here in a little bit. But so, and the newspapers in New York, which, Kim would know all about, were claiming that it had the biggest opening of an indie movie in the city at the time.
What?
Yeah. But here's something that I only heard about on this commentary. None of the other sources, I'm so glad I tracked down this DVD, but none of the other sources I looked at brought this up. Guess what else was going on in the summer of 76 in New York? The Democratic National Convention. They did promotion for this movie at the DNC.
Well then.
And hey, Damon, can you tell us who got the nomination that year?
I believe, if I am not wrong, it was Mr. Jimmy Carter.
Yes, it was.
James Carter, he of the peanut farm. Who ends up being the nicest, sweetest, kindest gentleman to ever grace the office of president. Who is too good for this country. Crap politician.
I was waiting for that. I was like, how political are we going to get here?
He did what he could while trying to be honest and open, and it did not work.
Anyway, so the DNC's going on in New York. Jimmy Carter gets the nomination. So guess what Mr. Barrett and Cinema Shares did? They made buttons that said Godzilla for president.
Why vote for the lesser evil?
Hey, Godzilla was a superhero at this time. So
this is true. That's my paradigm. So
they also had a big. This just cracks me up, given what happened 20 plus years later. Because the convention was at Madison Square Garden, so they made a giant footprint and put it in front of the garden.
Of course they did.
But that's not even the craziest thing they did. That's still not the buttons, the footprint. That's still not the craziest thing they did. Are you sit down, both of you. Sit down for this. Because after Jimmy Carter was announced as the nominee, they immediately switched into campaigning for Godzilla as vice president using 6 bikini girls.
I do have to say, if Jimmy Carter had Godzilla as his vice president, I think his foreign policy would have been a little bit different, and the hostage crisis would not have ended up the way it was. I'm just saying.
He could have sent Jet to go take care of that problem because he's friends. He's friends with the vice president.
Yeah, that's true. Jet would have probably been second. What is it? The chief of staff.
There you go.
Nobody understands what they do anyway. Nobody can understand Jet.
I think that was no comment. Something like
Close
that.
enough.
But yeah, so that was wild. So there was this aggressive campaign going on at this time. They notoriously edited this movie down to get a G rating. And the uncut version with the dub was never seen until the 90s. And even then, that was a little hard to do.
I have notes about what they cut out.
Oh, we'll talk about that because they took out some of the more violent parts. They took out the centerfolds.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody on IMDb claims to have identified the centerfolds.
Okay.
Interesting. Now that takes a level of pausing that I was not willing to do. Personally, I was more interested in what else was going on screen rather than to check out the background. But good on them for stick-to-itiveness.
Because I will tell you, cutting out the centerfold actually makes the scene more confusing because stuff happens in front of the centerfold that by removing it, you're like, wait, what?
I was like, wait, how did that do? Yeah, it wasn't until years later when I saw the uncut version, I was like, oh. What?
Actual information here.
A rare instance of nudity in a Godzilla film.
Yeah. Then it just becomes something like this. I don't want to look at that part. I just want to hear what they're saying.
So they edited down to get a G rating, which I'm sure probably helped with the box office because parents were more willing to take their kids to go see it and all of that, and because it was so prolific, it did so well. It was then shown on NBC on a Thursday night at 9 p.m. So they had to edit it down to an hour, but it's more like 48 minutes because they have to account for commercials. And it was introduced by John Belushi wearing a Godzilla suit made by Robert Short for a 1976 movie called Hollywood Boulevard that I didn't know existed until I did research for this. I'm just not old enough. But then when I actually looked into it, it's like, actually, this looks like the kind of movie that somebody like me would enjoy. I mean, because it's basically about a young aspiring actress who goes out to Hollywood to make it big, and she gets stuck making B movies with weirdos.
Not to be confused with Dolly Does Hollywood.
Yeah. What?
What? I'm sorry. Never mind. Edit that out. Just cut.
I'll make that
Right
decision.
here.
I'll make that decision in the editing bay. Anyway, although I think Kim was about ready to give you
Throttle me,
an
yeah.
epic mom rant right there.
Yeah.
The queen does not appreciate your uncouth humor.
If we ignore it and move on,
Yeah.
it's much better.
anyway, so yes. So there was that on there. So because of all this, and then people believed erroneously that this movie was in public domain, or at the very least the dub version was in public domain. This had, I think our friend Danny DeManna has told me exactly how many unlicensed versions there are of this on both video and DVD, because he has made it a goal in his life to own them all. I think it's I think it's 80 some.
What?
Yeah. Unauthorized VHS and DVD releases of this movie, because they believed it was in public domain. So you have the aggressive ad campaign by Cinema Shares that got a lot of people to go see it. You had it being shown on primetime on network TV. It was the only, I think it was the first, and I think I could be wrong on this. Jimmy, if you're listening to this, put it in your blog. I think it's still the only one that's ever gotten that treatment. And then all the unauthorized VHS releases and DVD releases. This is one of the most, I think it actually is the most widely seen Godzilla movie in the entire franchise, at least in America, for better or worse, depending on who you talk to. Because it made a whole new generation of fans, but to the uninitiated, it made Godzilla look like a B-movie monster for children.
That does explain why so many people I've talked to, so many fans I've talked to, have so many different realities about this movie. Like, they'll say, I don't remember, you start talking about a scene and they was like, I don't remember, that wasn't in the movie. Yeah, it was. What copy did you have? Or maybe you fell asleep or whatever. But yeah, I've noticed that some people have different, before the advent of the DVDs and whatnot that came out, people had different ideas about what this movie actually had in it and how long it was. And it's weird. I didn't realize there were 85. It's wild.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But one of those positive reviews came from a gentleman named Vincent Canby. And his review, at least an excerpt that I found, went like this. Godzilla vs. Megalon completes the canonization of Godzilla. It's been a remarkable transformation of character. The dragon has become St. George. It's wildly preposterous, imaginative, and funny, often intentionally. It demonstrates the rewards of friendship between humans as well as monsters, and it is gentle, end quote. And it was, like I said, it was shown all over the world in multiple countries. This thing got everywhere. We talked about West Germany and Jet Jaguar supposedly being King Kong. But Kim, I had to bring this up. And there's a story behind this. There's a story why this resonates with the two of us. It's actually the same place where the Fabulous Empire came from. Would you like to tell us?
You say it much more eloquently than I ever could. So
we were at G-Fest and they're doing Jeopardy, which is the traditional Godzilla trivia show. It's styled like Jeopardy. And they had this category because you and I, we tried out, we didn't get on, but we're like, we're going to sit here and we're going to see how many of because the tryout questions are always way harder than the actual questions. Mm-hmm. So we kind of sat there and were like, how many of these could we have actually gotten right if we were on the stage? And they had this really interesting category that nobody got any of them right. All 5 of the questions, nobody got any of them right because they didn't even try. I think if they did try, they got it wrong, or they just didn't try. And it was one, I don't remember what it was called, but it was basically foreign language titles for kaiju movies. And these are translated into English, okay? So one of them, which is where our favorite running joke has come from, the Fabulous Empire, was the title was Watangi and the Fabulous Empire of Monsters. And everyone in the crowd, including us, was like, heck is that? What is that? And we're like, what would that even be? And we was cracking our brain. It turns out it's Mothra versus Godzilla. It was an Italian title for Mothra versus Godzilla. We're like, what? And then that's where I'm like, what is that thing with the Fabulous Empire? Like, I did this thing with you. We're sitting next to each other, and then it just stuck. And I love it. I love the fact that it has basically become the official name for your fans.
I love it.
Yeah.
The Fabulous Empire.
Yeah, the Fabulous Empire. And then the other one that stuck with us was, now the source I looked at translates it differently, but I like the one used in Jeopardy a heck of a lot more. But this was the Italian title for Godzilla versus Megalon, translated into English. At the edge of reality. There you go. At the edge of reality. Kim, you got to make like a fan trailer with that. And
I'm actually working on one.
Yes, please tell me it's gonna do that as like a tagline or something, because that would be so good. You could do it like the original Alien trailer, where you just hear the announcer just repeat, a word of warning, and you just put that through at the edge of reality. Dropkick. At the edge of reality, Jet Jaguar grows. I mean, Damon, you can do the voiceover. That's what.
Yes.
At the edge of reality.
Perfect. I love it. I'm capturing that audio. I'm using it in the trailer. Thank you very much. 2 checks in the mail.
On the precipice of sanity.
Well, the source I looked at had it translated as at the borders of reality. Yawn.
Oh, that's not fun.
Yawn. Also, that wasn't the only change they did. They changed the characters' names too. Rokuro the kid became Robert. And this is only a little confusing, but Jinkawa, our race car driver, the muscle of our group here, he became Jimmy. Please don't tell him that.
Action Dad Jimmy.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm sorry, this is a travesty. They took Godzilla and Jet Jaguar punch out. I know, right? And replaced it with something called Morelli. And since it's an instrumental library piece by a group called Igress, letter I, capital Gres, from their 1974 self-titled album. I don't care who they are. That is a crime against humanity, removing that song.
They should be arrested.
Suit up, ladies and gentlemen. We're getting the time stone and going back.
Let's go.
To arrest them or put it back?
Yes.
When did we suddenly join the TVA?
Today.
You know what? I voiced Deadpool, so why not?
There are many ways we can go back in time, yeah?
Yeah. To be continued.